Hello and welcome to our July 10th, 2026 Freshet Friday podcast. We've got some great stories for you today, including election updates from the Tri-Cities and New Westminster, where new candidate declarations are becoming as common as bear sightings, details on what New Westminster City Council spent in 2025, a house fire in Coquitlam, the possible beginnings of a family running dynasty, and a gathered vintage pop-up in Lougheed Mall. I'm your host, Jeff Wheelwright, and with me on the podcast this week are the veteran journalists and founders of Freshet News, Mario Bartel, Teresa McManus, Janice Clue, and Cornelia Naylor, with their take on all of these happenings in Burnaby, New Westminster, and the Tri-Cities. Welcome back, team.
Hey,
Hi,
Jeff.
Jeff.
So our first story comes from Janice, and it's about new candidate declarations in the Tri-Cities.
Yeah, we've got two new candidates that have announced, and one is in for Coquitlam. His name is Solomon Echuk, and he is campaigning on affordability, and he's running for Port Coquitlam City Council. We also have Candace Knoll, who ran for by-election for a school district last year, and she's going to try again for another run. And we have in Port Coquitlam as well for City Council, we have an incumbent, Councillor Nancy McCurrick, and she's going to go for her fourth term, I believe, his fourth term. So we have a lot of candidates putting their names forward for the election, which is going to be happening on October 17th.
Fantastic. And I know that's not the only election news, and there's news of a new political party in New Westminster. I want to hear all about that, Teresa.
Yeah, we've been hearing rumors for a while now that there was going to be a new group that was going to be coming forward in New Westminster. And Elections BC has confirmed that indeed there is. It's a group called Be Good New West. And they have a Facebook page, and they have said that they're having a coming out party on Saturday, July 18th, and everyone's invited. Quite a charming description on their Facebook page. Listen, honey, it's time to spill the tea, some tea. A new queer-led organization is poised to transform local politics in New West. We're done asking politics to get good. As our gay and trans ancestors know, sometimes you have to step up, organize, and DIY the world you need. So Be Good New West is coming out. So after our recording here, I will be touching base with one of the folks behind the organization. And looking forward to sort of seeing what they're all about and how many candidates they're planning to field. It does sound like this is going to be something that's targeting seats on New Westminster City Council. And so at this point, they'll be the first group that will be coming forward that is not affiliated with the Community First or the New Westminster Progressive parties.
That's interesting. And I mean, I could guess, but are there any indications of the policies or platforms?
Nothing at this point. I do know that one of the folks that's sort of one of the leaders is a former employee, actually, at the City of New Westminster, and appeared before council a couple of months back regarding some concerns regarding the appearance of the Uptown Plaza, wanted it to be more inviting to community members. So not sure if they are going to be one of the candidates, but I'll be following up, and we'll be getting a story online soon.
I'm going to stay with you, Teresa, and we're going to talk a little bit about New Westminster has a report out about what they spent for 2025. So why don't you tell me a bit about that?
Sure. As I think it was Janice who said to me, it's the most wonderful time of the year for civic reporters. The cities across BC are putting out their statement of financial information. They're due out by the end of June. And there's a number of reports that are within that. And one of those is about the remuneration and expenses of council members. So in terms of New Westminster, it did show that the total price tag for both the council's pay and their expenses was $582,000 in 2025. Mayor Patrick Johnstone received $159,015, and each of the six councillors received $63,486. Yeah, so this report does break down into different categories, the expenses. A lot of those are for attendance at conferences like the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, the Union of BC Municipalities, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. There are options for other conferences and community events as well. the top spender for expenses was Councillor Ruby Campbell, who spent a total of $11,293. Most of the councillors spent between, I would say, $4,000 and $5,000 for their attendance at the conferences and other expenses. If anyone wants to check in on our website, though, I did sort of spend a little bit of a time yesterday going through and comparing New Westminster's numbers to other cities in Metro Vancouver. So I've got some comparisons there as to what the mayor and councillors made in Burnaby and Port Moody, Port Coquitlam. Port Coquitlam, for example, because everybody in New West seems to be infatuated with POCO. Their mayor made $169,000, which looks like about $10,000 more than Mayor Patrick Johnstone, and their councillors made about $2,000 more than New West councillors. They were almost at $66,000. So there's a bunch of different cities there that have done a comparison with and include the population if that's of interest to anyone, whether or not population determines, how much council members should be getting paid.
Oh, that is interesting. And what are the early indications?
I don't know, Jeff. You look at, for example, the city of Delta, and their population is 125,000, so a bit more than New West, and their mayor makes $206,000. Surrey's mayor, by contrast, their population is over 700,000. These figures, the population figures, are for Metro Vancouver, and she's making 171,000. So there are mayors with some populations that are larger that are making less, and then there's if money is your motivation for seeking political office, you probably want to avoid being the mayor of the village of Belcarra, where where the pay for the mayor is $25,000 and the councillors get about just shy of $13,000 a year.
That's some good coffee money. We'll be back with more of this week's Freshet Friday podcast, but first, a word from one of our advertisers.
Fortis BC is applying to expand the gas plant they operate in Delta beyond imagination. If the thought of LNG tankers on the Fraser, air pollution in Metro Vancouver, or the risk of a fireball accident gives you pause, the time is now to voice those concerns before the permits are finalized. Sign up at stand.earth/stop Tilbury. Expanding polluting gas puts homes and wildlife at risk, but they don't have all their permits, and together we can stop it. Stand.earth/stop Tilbury.
And we're back. Okay, well, I'm going to stick with the local democracy, and I want to talk to you a little bit, Cornelia, about a contest that happened at SFU where students were asked to come up with their own ideas about bolstering renewal and resilience in Canadian democracy. And one of them, I think, sounds a bit close to home. So tell me about it.
Yeah, that's right. So I got this news release from SFU's Morris J. Wask Center for Dialogue. It was a bit unfortunate because the event had actually happened in April, but we only just got the press release this week. So anyway, it's about the Dems Shot Challenge. So the reason it's called that is it's a moonshot for democracy. The way that the center describes it is a call to mobilize whole of society action for two of the defining challenges of our time, myths and disinformation and the breakdown of democracies. I had a chance to talk to the director of democratic participation and innovation at the Center for Dialogue, Robin Prest, and he was talking about finding ways to bolster democratic culture. He was saying that across the Western world, that democracies are under threat. He said Canadian democracy is still very strong in some ways, but there are quote unquote cracks beginning to show, especially in our democratic culture, the way we talk to our neighbors, that kind of thing. So this Demshot Challenge was put out to students to come up with real ideas and how to address these things. And the winner, to my delight, was a person who thought that something needs to be done about local news. Both Prest and the student, he's an SFU master's student in political science. His name is Thomas Land. He is from Wales, and he's going to be finishing up in the fall at SFU in his master's program. And he pitched the idea of bolstering local news. And both Prest and Land pointed to local news as really important to democracy. One of the things Prest said was that one of the biggest predictors of trust in government is citizens' feelings that their voices are being heard and that their voices make a difference. And he said that there's a big mismatch nowadays because people are so focused on national and international news, they consume a ton of that, where their voices don't really make much of a difference. There's not much of an opportunity to make a difference. In contrast, local news gives people, kind of creates a feedback loop where people find out what's going on from a credible news source and then can do something about it because it's in their neighborhoods. One thing that I thought was really interesting from Thomas Land, the master's student, is that he pointed to the idea that for local news, you can actually hold the news makers accountable because they're in your neighborhood, so you can call them on stuff that's inaccurate or sensationalized because you're there. And I thought that was a great point, that the people get to be part of keeping the news accountable because it's so close to home. Anyway, so all this to say, Land's pitch was this whole contest culminates in a Dragon's Den style presentation or pitch that was held atop Burnaby Mountain in April. And his pitch was that we should create an apprenticeship program for two sets of people, and that is high school graduates and university graduates. And these would be paid internships, and they would lead to proper accreditation, proper certification as journalists. And this would meet a twofold need, which is it would incentivize people to get into journalism. Right now, there's not a ton of incentive to get into it. And there's a lot of youth unemployment. People are finding it tough to find their first careers. That's what both Land and Press said. And so this would allow, that would make this a much more attractive thing to get into. You could be getting paid while you're doing the work and getting the certification, which is the beauty of apprenticeships. To pay for this, he suggested initially the idea of federal funding. Then he also suggested, because local journalism is a public good and is considered a public good, that there might be some sort of municipal surcharge, local news surcharge, that would pay for this public good the same way that it does for recreation centers and theaters and such. One thing that he was particularly proud of in terms of an idea was the idea of mimicking the BC Student Loan Forgiveness Program. That program forgives loans for people who are willing to go into underserved communities, such as like nurses going to remote communities or underserved communities, doctors the same, and then loans are forgiven. So he suggested that this could be done for people in the arts and humanities, put them into local journalism, give them loan forgiveness, and also pay them a stipend, and then and that would incentivize them to enter this field when they might not otherwise. So yeah, I thought that was and so he won the top prize. It was $1,000. He paid it helped pay for his education. He did a field school in a NATO field school that was related to diplomacy in some way. One of the things he was talking about doing. So yeah, it was just very encouraging to hear people talk about local news in the way that we understand that it operates for democracy.
That is very cool. I like this guy. Yeah, and actually, one thing that's very inspiring is that that's the kind of message that's behind our mutual aid fund that we're doing with the Van City Community Foundation. Last week, we announced a partnership with Van City Community Foundation to support the work of Freshet News, which is a nonprofit news cooperative, and it's a community-guided fund that helps channel unrestricted resources to grassroots initiatives. It responds to urgent needs and systemic changes, of which the loss of local news in many communities is one. So I would encourage people to check that out. You can get more details on the support page on our website. And we would deeply appreciate your support.
Yeah, this way you can get a tax receipt. If you donate to the mutual aid fund, you can get a tax receipt and support our efforts. We've had to be pretty creative in finding ways to fund our initiative.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. So, Mario, I understand the first story you have for us is something new and delicious at Rocky Point Park. This is a new restaurant, is that right?
Yeah, the restaurant down in the park has been closed since April. It's been boarded up. It used to be occupied by the boathouse for many, many years. The building was actually built by the city, and the company that owns the boathouse signed a 30-year lease with the city. But they've been closing their restaurants around the Lower Mainland, one in White Rock, one at Kitts Beach, one up at Horseshoe Bay over the last several years. And the last boathouse still floating is in New Westminster, into the Quay. And they had some issues at their Port Moody location. There was a fire that closed it for several months a couple of years ago. So yeah, when it closed, a lot of people in the city were wondering what would go in there. Well, we found out last week the company that owns the local public eatery, they're owned by the Joey Restaurant Group, put out a bit of a teaser on social media that they were taking over that spot. That's had some mixed reaction on social media. Some people like those kind of restaurants, those chains that provide a common experience no matter where you go. The Joey Restaurant Group, people might know it for some of their other restaurants, Earl's, Cactus Club, and of course, Joey restaurants. And they've also had the local public eatery in several places as well. So yeah, there's a bit of anticipation. I think for the most part, people are happy something's going on. It's a beautiful spot. It's not often you get a waterfront view at a restaurant, and it can be quite a pleasant place to dine. So they said they'll be open by early 2027. So something to look forward to.
Yeah, and a tale you can dine out on.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that, Mario. I am now going to turn us to talking about something else that is another kind of unique initiative. Teresa, you had a story about gathered vintage at the Lougheed Mall. Now, to me, that kind of sounds like antiques and the kinds of things that you might find in thrift stores, but what is it really?
Well, that's exactly what it is, Jeff. It's the brainchild of Port Moody residents Jesse and Ella Hurley. They're a mom and daughter who, if anybody's on Instagram, they may know them as Messy Beans. Jesse's the Messy and Ella's the Beans. And they go to vintage markets as Messy Beans and sell all kinds of secondhand treasures. But Jessie, she once ran a scrapbooking store in Port Moody down on St. John's. And now she, as a lover of vintage, she had a dream, and that was basically to bring together vintage vendors from around the region. And she's done that. She's got a pop-up antique mall in Lougheed, the city of Lougheed, and says it's the first antique mall in a shopping center in British Columbia. I was in there and I was talking to her. The place was bustling, and there's 19 vendors there, and so they've each got a different space. Some of them have like a full-size booth. Some of them might have a shelving unit, and there is just everything in there. There's everything from Pyrex bowls, which I had to restrain myself because I'm a longtime collector, to record albums, to everything you can think of, really, as far as vintage. So stock is changing pretty much daily, because on the first day that they opened, which was Canada Day, the place was hopping. They sold over 200 items, and for anybody who's ever worked in retail, that's a significant number of items to go out the door in one day. One's in this part of the region. So I checked it out. I put my blinders on when I was doing my interview because, I didn't want to spend too much money before I even, did my interviews. But yeah, it's in Lougheed Mall on the second story, up in and around the flower shop. There's vendors there from all over. Like I say, there's a woman from New Westminster. There's folks from the Tri-Cities, the Valley, Vancouver, and a lot of people who are into the vintage world. They sort of have their own kind of style. So you'll find everything from kitschy to more of a beach coastal kind of vibe going on. So yeah, definitely worth checking out if anybody's interested in adding some vintage treasures to their decor.
That is wise advice and sounds like fun. Okay, I'm going to turn us now to our Freshet 911 stories. So I understand we have a story about a Coquitlam fire yesterday.
Yeah, this one is really tragic, Jeff. The 911 the phone started lighting up at around just after 9 o'clock on Tuesday, July 7th, and folks were just noticing major plumes of smoke. Even in New West, people were thinking that it was here. It turned out that it was a fire in Millardville, just on Roderick Avenue, and police did sadly have to confirm that one person was confirmed dead inside one of the homes. There were three buildings that were involved in the fire, one of them a duplex. And yes, an 18-year-old was treated on the scene, and then a Coquitlam CMP officer was actually transported to hospital for smoke inhalation. At this stage, it's under investigation. No details about the cause of the fire are known. Yeah, and as I say, one person was found deceased in one of the buildings, and Sergeant Adriana O'Malley from Coquitlam RCMP said their thoughts were with the family and friends and all those that were impacted by the tragic incident. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, Janice, what's on this week?
I mean, what's not on this week? Just it's soccer all the time. We're just, getting to the last week of FIFA World Cup, and wow, what a run it's been. Locally, for Saturday, I did want to point out in New Westminster, the third annual West Coast Speculative Fiction Association will have its market, and that is at the Sapperton Community Hall. That runs from noon to 6 p.m. And at the same time, the Twitch Vancouver is having its first annual art and games market, and that is also at Sapperton Community Hall. I know there's a lot of buzz happening about this event, and a lot of kids that are excited to come to this. In terms of Sunday, I did want to point out that at Rocky Point Park at 2 o'clock on Sundays in Port Moody, there are the Summer Sundays concert series. And this Sunday coming up is Eagle Eyes. It's a tribute band to the Eagles. This is a concert series put on by George Balzer, who also programs all the music for Ribfest, which is coming up next weekend. There's also the boardwalk sale at the New Westminster Quay, and I wondered if Teresa can speak to them a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, the Quayside Community Board is bringing back its boardwalk sale, and that's on Saturday, July 11th, from 10 to 3 p.m. And it's all along the boardwalk there. There were 160 spaces available. Not sure how many of those have been booked, but they will be starting around 10th Street and going down to the children's playground. Full disclosure, I will be selling, so I don't want anyone to, think that, this is a plug just for me. But yeah, no, it's something that a lot of Quayside residents have been asking for. It used to be held down here for many years, and then the fellow who organized it moved out of town. So a couple of real keen Quayside residents have put a lot of effort into bringing it back.
That is wonderful. And then also, Fridays on Front is back in New Westminster on July 10th, 17th, 24th, and August 7th, 14th, and 21st. Front Street transforms into a big celebration, and they've got the live music and local food and drinks by Steel and Oak, community vendors, and lots of other fun stuff. So I would encourage you to check out Fridays on Front.
One of the things that I did forget to mention about the Quayside sale, Jeff, is that there will actually be live entertainment and there will be food trucks down there as well. And then also on the river on this weekend on Saturday is the new Buskers on the Boardwalk program that Arts New West is putting on. And that's going to be every Saturday afternoon from 1 till 3 p.m. outside of River Market.
Great. Lots of fun things to do. Now we're going to turn to sports, and we have a story from Mario about a young Burnaby runner with a long-running family history. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, we featured Luca Bertoia in our print edition last Thursday. Found out about him, a photographer who does some work for the Simon Fraser University, was at the BC High School Track and Field Championships in June, and was kind enough to send us a few images of local local athletes in competition there. And one of them, he sort of mentioned in a follow-up email, oh, well, this kid, he won second in the 400 meters at the provincial high school championships. And he said, oh, it's like his dad is a runner and his grandfather was a runner. So I thought, well, that sounds interesting. So I followed up, reached out. And sure enough, Luca Bertoia comes from a long line of runners. He's following in the footsteps of his dad, who competed in the 1,500 meters at the 1991 Pan Am Games in Havana, Cuba. He won a bronze medal. His grandfather, Don, ran in the 800 meters at the 1964 Olympics in Tokyo, and he was also competed at the 1962 British Empire Games and the 1963 Pan American Games. He has two aunts who've competed for Simon Fraser University and an uncle who also competed at Simon Fraser University. And sure enough, Luca will be heading up there, up Burnaby Mountain come September to continue his education and his running exploits. So it's kind of neat when you sort of find out about these things through kind of back channels. And his dad, Dan, is his coach, and so I met with both of them and just talking about how sort of that those bloodlines run through you. And he, Luca said he didn't really come to running. He was more of a soccer player, but happened to participate in the junior boys 400 meters at provincials a couple of years ago and got a bronze medal and thought, oh, this is fun. And he sort of started taking it up, and how he participates with the Royal City Track and Field Club, where his dad also helps out. And we'll see where he goes.
Wow. So does the family run together now?
Luca and his dad do run. They said they often run the trails down at Robert Burnaby Park or up around Burnaby Mountain. And, it's one of those cool family stories where, father and son doing something together and both of them having some success and able to teach each other and learn from each other as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that, Mario. And now one more word from one of our advertisers, and then it's time for our favorite stories of the week.
Fortis BC is applying to expand the gas plant they operate in Delta beyond imagination. If the thought of LNG tankers on the Fraser, air pollution in Metro Vancouver, or the risk of a fireball accident gives you pause, the time is now to voice those concerns before the permits are finalized. Sign up at stand.earth/stop Tilbury. Expanding polluting gas puts homes and wildlife at risk, but they don't have all their permits, and together we can stop it. Stand.earth/stop Tilbury.
Okay, so I think it's time to talk about our favorite stories of the week. And Janice, I know that you have one.
Last month, I had the pleasure to go to two art galleries in Burnaby. One is the Burnaby Art Gallery, which is housed in a mansion, and it has a very colorful history and the focus of an art exhibit that's currently up until August 30th by Muffany McLeod. It's called Trophies. Focuses on a certain part of the history at the house when it was a frat house. And this was when it was in 1965, and they were trying to get a fraternity going at SFU, which had just opened. And 21 young men went into this house and they destroyed it. And remnants of some of their partying time still remains. They were taken during the renovations in 1966, including the door, which has the Wizard of Oz on it. We don't know what that refers to, possibly a band. Obviously, the fraternities did not start at SFU because they wanted a more egalitarian society up there. But this exhibit is fascinating, and I really encourage you to see it. And it focuses a lot about hazing and rituals, and it goes back to the Grecian days. So, Lougheed McLeod, she is best known for the birds at Olympic Village. She did the public art installation there. The second art exhibit I viewed was at the Nikkei Museum. It is absolutely beautiful. It's up until September 5th, and it focuses on the 50 years at the Powell Street Festival. And it has a lot of posters and sushi costumes. And I had the pleasure to walk through the exhibit with the curator, Eniko Morita, and her grandparents were forced out of Japantown around the Second World War. And it talks a lot about how this area around Oppenheimer Park, which is where the festival is held, basically was the a vibrant area, especially with the Asahi baseball team there when they won tournament after tournament. There was lots of prosperity in the area. And of course, it became a ghost town during World War II. This is the next generation, the second generation of Japanese Canadians, their children who are now rediscovering their roots and wanting better connectivity with their culture. And they put on this festival. They put it on since 1977. And the exhibit is absolutely fantastic. So congratulations to Emiko. And if you have a chance to go down and see it, it's worth your time.
Wow, that sounds great. How about you, Teresa? What was your favorite this week?
My favorite was one that's in print, and it's one that's sort of been on my mind for quite a long time. It's a story about dogs with jobs, basically. And when we were starting Freshet, one of the things that we did was we went out into the community. And at one of those community events, a New West resident, Colleen Ray, came by our booth, and she had this amazing dog, Allie, and she's a big sheepadoodle. And when we were chatting, she was telling me that Allie was an accredited dog with St. John Ambulance. So she was certified there. And so they would go out to weekly visits to places like they go to the Vancouver airport once a week, and they, sort of offer, some support to people who might be stressed out about flying or have missed their flights. And then also once a week, she goes to Kiwanis Care Center in New West. And I did have an opportunity to tag along when she went there last week. And just seeing, there was probably about 20, 25 seniors that were in a circle, many of them in their wheelchairs, all of them just so delighted when they saw Allie come through the door. It was, Allie, she's so beautiful, she's so lovely. And one by one, Colleen would take Allie around to the folks, and they, just the comfort that she seemed to bring them, that connection. It was just so lovely to witness. So when I had seen Colleen at the event last year, I was like, oh, I want to do a story on this. And since then, the New Westminster Police Department acquired an accredited facility dog through PADS, and they've got Sokka. And so Mario and I went down there and we chatted with Kirsten Wilson. She's the acting coordinator of the police department's victim assistance unit, and she was telling us all about Sokka. Now, Sokka is new to the department, but already making his presence felt. One of the funny things that I wasn't able to fit into the story was that they had to take him to the courthouse, and he's a big dog, and trying to teach him how to get himself into a box where someone's going to be testifying in court, maneuvering, because she said that initially his head was like hanging off the stair and he wasn't comfortable. So, but then Sokka, his role is to support victims, and she has seen that with people who are maybe writing out victim impact statements, people who are going to court. And then the third place that I was able to connect with was a childcare facility in Port Coquitlam, Creative Kids Childcare Learning Center. And I actually learned of this through a friend of mine who said, they've got dogs on their staff. And I was like, dogs? And so, yeah, they've got 4 dogs. 3 of them are little miniature Aussie Shepherds, and they are part of the staff team. In fact, if you go to the facility's website, the dogs will be listed with the other human staff members. So it was just a really nice opportunity to talk to people from a variety of different facilities about dogs and how they can help people through some trying times with children. There's a lot of benefits that they see with the kids in the facility. So yeah.
No, that's wonderful.
My favorite story.
It's tough to pick because there are so many. Janice's story reminded me of just the unbelievable story of the Sepperly Mansion with the cult that used to be housed in there. I mean, if you did a sitcom, or I guess maybe a sitcom, some of the stuff that went on there was pretty serious. But if you did a drama or mystery about that building, it would almost seem far-fetched. Really crazy history. And the dog one, there's such a touching quote from the communications cop in New West that really got me. But I'm going to just be selfish and say that I loved hearing about all these people talking about how important local news is. Sometimes when we are going about our business, trying to do different administratives or marketing or all this different stuff that we've been doing to try to get Freshet news going, it's really nice to be reminded how important what we're doing is, which sounds a bit self-serving, but it was a nice morale booster. So I'm going to pick that one.
Yeah, I know. I can totally see that. Well, my favorite story this week was actually about Pride. So we were at Coquitlam Pride, and all kinds of colorful costumes and people having a fantastic time. And Lisa King took some amazing photos for us of everything that went on there. And I think they really reflect the real beauty and diversity of what we were seeing around us. So that was my favorite story. How about you, Mario?
I really enjoyed working with Teresa on her story about Dogs with Jobs, which was our center spread feature in this week's print edition. It's always fun to meet people who are really passionate about something. We went down to the New West Police Department and met their dog that they have to help people who are going through a tough time because of a criminal incident or something like that. Soka was the dog's name. They take the dog up to court sometimes if a witness or a victim of crime has to have a difficult day in court giving testimony. They've trained the dog to be able to sit at their feet and provide reassurance and sort of a calming environment. We also, Colleen Ray and her dog Allie, very calm demeanor, met her at a seniors residence in New Westminster, where she does regular visits to just kind of hang out with the seniors and be there for them when they want some comfort. And the dog also goes to Vancouver Airport. They have a program down there where it will greet travelers or just hang out at people who are anxious about flying. They can step in, and we often hear that the dogs. They need a purpose, and whether that's carrying a stick or providing public service like this, it's always wonderful to hear and they do it with such selflessness and earnestness, and they have such great instincts for knowing when people need their presence, and so yeah, it was just a really really nice story to do some photos for.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Okay, well, that wraps up another Freshet Friday podcast, but we'll be back soon. In the meantime, feel free to pick up a copy of yesterday's paper at your local coffee shop, grocery store, drugstore, community center, city hall, or rec center. You can also enjoy the very latest local news on our website at freshetnews.ca. And make sure you subscribe to our weekly email newsletter, which you can request from the Support Us tab on our website. It's a great way to start off a slow Sunday morning over a cup of coffee. In the meantime, keep asking yourself the question, is it Freshet Friday yet? And come on back when the answer is yes. Thanks to our team for being here. Thanks for listening, and have a great weekend.